Hey guys, Scott here. Today I want to show you how to trivialize most of Elden Ring with these fancy new things. These are the new Dueling Shield class of weapon. Well, there's really only two of them, at least as far as I'm aware of. The Dueling Shield and the Carry and Thrusting Shield. I prefer using the Carry and Thrusting Shield because it has a slightly higher guard boost, and that's really it. The only other thing that you really want to worry about is the intelligence requirement, which is 15, but I'll get to that in a minute, why you actually want to have that level of intelligence regardless. So I like the Carry and Thrusting Shield. I think it looks awesome as well, but these things are honestly pretty busted. So I'll just get right to it. It's got a nice moveset, whatever. You can mess with that on your own time. The thing I want to talk about is the thing that makes this kind of broken. It's the block R1. The block light attack pretty much just combos forever until you run out of stamina. There's no like long recovery finishing hit there. But the most important thing is while this is happening, you're blocking this whole time. So I pretty much never actually get hit here. I'll just go test this on one of these terrifying ass enemies. I pretty much never actually get hit through the guard. And really all you have to do is put your shield up and mash R1 a bunch of times. And eventually just you will out damage the thing that's hitting you. And it doesn't matter what you're going against. It's still going to go in your favor every time. Again, these absolutely terrifying, basically mini boss enemies. Don't care. Hold L1. Just bashing my controller. There's literally nothing to it. I just hold block and I out damage the shit out of it. Now, this whole concept is not a foreign thing to Souls games. There has been shield poking for a really long time. So, for example, if we just like slap on any spear and do this, you've always been able to put up your shield, do a light attack, and just poke like that. Which is nice and it's safe, but it's sort of slow and tedious, and people have looked at using like the Antspur rapier to apply Scarlet Rot, anything to speed up the process because this is a very slow process hitting someone with a little one-handed weapon over and over again. However, these shields skip that entire process. These are a two-handed weapon that essentially function in the exact same way as a shield poke, except it's a whole-ass weapon that does significantly more damage, and also it allows you to benefit from the two-handed sword talisman because this technically counts as a weapon being wielded with two hands. So it's going to do more damage because it just simply has more AR than any one-handed weapon, and also it's going to do 15% more damage now because you're using the two-handed sword talisman that stacks on top of it. So first things first, how do we actually build this thing? Well, I think there is a pretty correct way to do it. So I put a heavy infusion on the weapon itself, and this allows it to scale only with strength. The Ash of War you put on it honestly doesn't really matter. You just want to make it heavy for this particular build in the way that I'm doing it. Some good Ashes of War are like Barricade Shield, Immutable Shield, Vow the Indomitable. I mean, you can really just put whatever you want. It doesn't matter. I don't even end up really even using it. You can even slap on like Royal Knight's Resolve to do more damage with it if you really want to. But like I said, this doesn't really matter. It's a secondary thing. You're just trying to make it heavy infused. That's the main important part here. So obviously you get your 60 vigor, and you want to have a decent chunk of endurance, at least start with 30, because you're going to be blocking a lot, so you want a lot of endurance here. So for your intelligence, you're going to need to get this to 15, because that is the actual amount you need. For dexterity, I believe you need 13. And now we're going to put most of our points into strength, but we're going to stop at a certain value here, in case you don't know about soft cap. So when you're two-handing a weapon with a heavy infusion, 54 is the soft cap for the actual weapon here. Now, the reason for that is when you're two-handing a weapon, you gain 1.5 times your strength bonus. So it basically becomes 80 strength. It rounds up to that. So with 80 strength, that is the soft cap for damaging stats, which means anything past that is going to give pitiful returns in terms of damage. So for example, from 50 to 51 strength, I'm going from 659 to 662, 668, 670, 674. We're gaining, 4, 5, 6 points of damage per. As soon as I go over that 54, 1 point, 1 point, 2 point, 1 point, 2 points, 1.2 points. It goes down drastically. So 54 is the main number we want to hit because anything after that is going to be much lower in terms of damage here. Next, we want to get 27 faith specifically. You can go higher if you want to throw some other buffs on here. I'll get to why you want 27 faith in just a second. But yeah, you want to go very heavy on endurance. Basically, if you're level 150, this is pretty good right here. Just kind of go. Your spare stats go to endurance and strength equally, whatever. This is all fine. Just whatever. Like I said, it doesn't really matter. The difference between 80 strength and 68 is, we're looking at 15 damage. It's not a big deal. So that's the kind of build you want to go. Now, the reason you want to have 27 faith here is because this shield does not have perfect absorption for everything. It almost absorbs all physical damage. 94% is really, really good, but it doesn't really have good fire, lightning, or holy resistance. And the way we mitigate that is by slapping on, the respective talisman of the damage that we're going to be taking to boost up our defenses by quite a bit, even when we're not defending. But the main reason we have 27 Faith is this allows us to cast all of the main giant buff spells that are insanely good for defending against certain forms of damage. So these are the spells: Barrier of Gold, I think Flame Protect Me, Golden Lightning Fortification, and Lord's Divine Fortification. These all give, I believe, 60% damage reduction to the respective type of damage that you're taking. So you pretty much just slap all these on as your main spells. You pretty much have to cast, 1 or 2 spells, so you don't really need any mind. But the 27 Faith is so you can have these spells because, like I said, you do need to cover the holes that the shield does not have. If it's a purely physical boss, doesn't matter. You don't need to buff it with anything. You'll be completely fine. But certain bosses, like, phase 2 of the final boss, for example, does a ton of holy damage. And so you need to actually boost up your own absorptions to actually have the block not take too much chip damage. But once you buff yourself with one of these things, for example, the final boss, you put on the golden hair thingy from the Shaman Village in the DLC as well, with the more damage negation. It's like the upgraded Haligdrake talisman. Then you're looking at, 80-90% holy damage reduction without even blocking. You put on the shield, it'll stack with that, so you'll be just fine. That's the reason we get 27 Faith. But other than that, that's how you actually build it in terms of your stats. Now, in terms of talismans, you kind of have a lot of options, but I think there's a couple that are like really, really definitely good. So the Great Shield Talisman is kind of a no-brainer. This enhances your stability, and your stability is how much guard and how much stamina you lose when you take a hit. So you want as much stability as humanly possible. So Great Shield Talisman, I believe, gives you like 20% more stability. Great thing to have. It'll let you trade more. It'll let you hold up your guard more and not have to worry about things for a longer amount of time. Things that boost your stamina or stamina regen is also fine. Anything that boosts your stamina, you can even go with Erdtree Favor, which is a bit smaller of a bonus, but it also has some nice other bonuses as well. But really, anything that's going to give you more stamina equals more blocking, equals more attacking, because that's really your health bar, is your stamina. As soon as that's gone, then you have to actually retreat and then get your stamina back to get it going again. But basically, stamina is your second health bar. It's almost like mana with like a mana shield type thing. So look at it that way. The two-handed sword talisman is also a no-brainer, and this also is why this is significantly better than running this on, like, a thrusting sword setup, because the blocking and thrusting sword setup is not new to any Souls game. You've been able to do that for a really long time. But the problem is you're using like a dinky rapier or a spear or something in your offhand. You're doing very low damage. This is a big Chad two-handed shield that benefits from the two-handed sword talisman. So you're doing way, way more damage than if you were shield poking with a great shield or something at the cost of slightly more stability lost. So with this, you're doing 15% more, and you're two-handing a heavy infused weapon. So you're going to be hitting as if you're actually hitting people like with a great sword, but it's a shield and you're blocking. That's why it's so much better than the shield poke, in my opinion. Finally, we have the Spear Talisman, which boosts the damage of counterattacks. If you're not aware what counterattacks are, basically whenever an enemy is in recovery from an animation at the end of their combo, their thrusting damage resistance goes down by, I believe, 20%. This simply increases the amount that goes down effectively. So you do even more damage when they're recovering from an animation, and because you're going to be trading constantly, you will constantly be swinging to bosses and enemies when they're in the recovery animation. So this is a no-brainer for giving you an insanely high amount of damage. I mean, you saw in the little lion thing there, I did 10,000 damage in like 4 seconds. Again, you're not doing that with a little, a great shield and a little rapier or spear poke. It's going to take you way more hits. So this is the best way to do it. Finally, I have the spell Scholar's Shield on, and that's pretty much the only spells you need, the protection spells and Scholar's Shield. Scholar's Shield not only gives you an insanely high magic negation, so if you're fighting a boss like Renala, or I guess Renala too, or Rolana, your shield will block pretty much all of the magic damage, so that's really good for her. But it also increases the stability of your shield as well, so you have even easier time blocking, you lose even less stamina. The best part is you only need 12 intelligence to cast that spell, but the shield requires 15, so you're already good to go. Slap on whatever staff. The staff doesn't actually matter, even if you don't meet the requirements for it. The requirements for a staff only matter if you're doing damage with the spell that you're casting. If it's a buff, doesn't matter at all. You just need to meet the requirements of the actual spell itself. So that's it. You got Scholar's Shield on there that'll buff your stability. You've got your actual spells that'll buff your protection that the shield is not going against, depending on whatever boss you're going against. Very easy to deal with. And then these are the talismans I recommend. But that's it. I don't really need to show you more gameplay because the gameplay is hold L1 and mash R1 against your face until you're out of stamina, retreat a bit for a few seconds, go back in, and that's it. Oh, finally, for your Wondrous Physic, it doesn't really matter. I just put in the Opalian hard tier because it's great. I'm also messing around with the deflecting hard tier. This is the new one that gives you that Sekiro-like perfect block if you time it right. I don't really find it to be necessary. You can do it. I like the sound effect. It makes like a little ching, like when you do a perfect block. So that's cool, but it doesn't really matter. You don't need this. You can put on essentially whatever you want. But that's pretty much the build. It pretty much trivializes the entire game, so you might get bored, honestly. But if you're really struggling with a boss, try this. Have some decent stamina management, and yeah, you'll pretty much just negate the entire game. That's it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.